Good morning, everyone. I call this meeting of the Economic Development Authority of the City of Portsmouth to order. Good morning to everyone, and welcome to, we have two new members, and you're going to make those introductions.
Yes.
But just want to say welcome in the beginning of the meeting. Thank you all for being here this morning. Roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Barber.
Yes.
Ms. Drury.
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Smith. Mr. Smith.
Here.
You do have a quorum. And again this morning, if I could, Chair, you do have two new members to start off the new year. So let me first say Happy New Year to everyone. But you do have two new members on the authority, and like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, give a little background, and then go from there. So I will go ladies first with Miss Kathy Drury.
Thank you. I am excited to be here. I've been in the hotel business for over 25 years. In fact, I opened the Renaissance Portsmouth Hotel. So I've had a lot of experience in Portsmouth, and the Renaissance is actually what brought me here. I grew up in Virginia Beach, lived in downtown Norfolk for 10 years, but have lived here now for 10 years and wouldn't change it. So thank you. I look forward to bringing my knowledge and experience to the board and helping any way I can.
I also look forward to working with you on that and there. Kathy and I do have something in common. The Renaissance brought us here. My wife and I would take long weekends to the Renaissance and come down, and we really enjoyed the community. So 5 years ago, we decided to move our residence from Middlesex County and came down, and we've been here ever since. And we live over in Admiral's Landing with next to Elizabeth, who's my neighbor. I have a small business as well. We have it's called Community Futures. It's a community and economic development consulting firm that I've been operating now about 15 years, and before that had some experience with local and regional governments and the state level for a number of years as well. But and look forward to helping however I can with this on this board and city council achieve its vision.
And there will be an orientation sessions for them.
We have conducted orientation sessions for both. So
Already? Okay.
Already.
Very
So
good.
they know almost everything you all know.
It's not a lot. Okay. Welcome again. Thank you all for being here. I know you will, enjoy the opportunity, and those that are already seated. Hopefully we'll get a chance to chat, especially at our retreat. That'll be an opportunity for us to spend more time together on March 20th. So hopefully you can be there. We'll entertain the minutes. Have everyone reviewed the minutes, and are there any questions, corrections, or any about the minutes? Everyone received a copy of the minutes?
Second.
All right.
It's been moved and seconded for approval.
All right. Mr. Barber.
Approved. Yeah.
Ms. Drury.
Approved.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the financials, same order. Everyone's hopefully had a chance to review those, and if there are any questions or concerns, we'll entertain them at this time. If not, we'll entertain a motion.
If we could, Chair, before we do that, we normally let Miss.
Would you like me to just do a high-level review?
Yes, yes, yes.
Just want to point out that as of December 31st, the authority had $1,314,711.06 on this statement of net position, which is the same as the balance sheet in the old days. You're showing unrestricted net position of $12 million. Remember, that's all in your inventory. So your cash is really your asset, your net position. And during the month, you had a net outlay, turn to the page 2, had operating expenses of $23,519 and income of around $9,411. You know, there was an in and out from hotel lease revenue that went straight back to the city, so a net decrease of $32,932. So I think there's a lot of supporting schedules in here with showing your inventory of your assets, your land, properties for sale, and that kind of thing. So if there's any questions about that, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you.
So we let me send that to audit.
Okay, we won't need to vote on that. We'll just send that to audit. Thank you again, Ms. Phillips. Old business, 2021 budget ad hoc committee meetings. Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Chair. Certainly, we have the ad hoc committee that was set up for the budget. We'd like to schedule those meetings. We normally have at least 2 prior to submitting the budget to the board, which then the board would approve and then send on certainly to the city manager and to city council. We typically attempt to have the budget approved and ready to go, present in April, so we can have it approved in May. So for the ad hoc members, which are Mr. Kovacic and is it who was the other member, Mr. Kovacic?
I'd have to look back at my notes.
Okay. We will get together. We'll verify before the end of the meeting with Lee who that was, and then we will have. We would like to set up a time to meet again at least twice. We'd like to have certainly the 2 members as well as a member of finance staff there when we go through the budget, and that gives us an opportunity to really lay out what economic development staff thinks is necessary for the upcoming year, but at the same time gives you all certainly some input on how you would like your monies utilized over the next year. So, but just as a reminder of that, and as we set those dates, we'll send out the emails to let you all know when those dates have been set. That's all I have for that.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, economic development project updates. Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, there are 2 items on your agenda that going forward, staff would like for you all to know that will be on there every single month. And that will be the project updates as well as the local incentive program updates. We may not have an update, but that is a placeholder on the agenda going forward so that, again, we keep consistent conversations going about what we have going on in the city. What I will tell you is that from a project standpoint, you all have heard the numbers from last year. We have already hit the ground running for this year, and we're well on our way to another banner year in the areas of offshore wind, in the areas of certainly the casino and how that legislation may play out. Those are certainly going to be wins, pun intended, for the EDA. But I think what we're most proud of is we are in budget season from a city standpoint. We have had our budget defense meeting for our office, went very well. But one thing that we had in the budget was we updated our strategic plan. And our strategic plan will be presented to council on February 25th. That is a Tuesday night work session. And then subsequently, we will have that discussion with you all at the joint meeting, joint retreat in March. But part of that strategic plan update, we have really taken into account what we have heard, not only from you all as a board, but also from council, from the citizens, and from the business community. One thing we have consistently heard is that there is not a road map, if you will, on how to open a business in the city of Portsmouth. Well, that is no longer the case. We now we sent to council, I think, last week, week before. We do now have on our website what we call the Smart Start Business Guide, which lays out, not comprehensively, but as much as possible, the steps to opening a business here in the city of Portsmouth. The first step, which we are most proud of, is that you need to come talk to economic development. So we can be there holding hands with you through the entire process. Again, it's not a end-all be-all because everyone's situation is different. Opening a restaurant is not the same as opening up an office space. But we are proud of the fact that we have a document now that kind of starts you on that way down the path to being a business owner, and more specifically a business owner in Portsmouth. So that is really the project update for right now. I do stand for any questions if you have any questions about any other projects or what I just discussed.
I just have one question on the strategic plan. Just review the process again so that it goes before city council and then to the board.
So it's not really. Keep in mind from a staffing standpoint, we staff this board. So we have put together the plan in-house. We have, to make sure we utilize monies properly and effectively. We have worked for the last 12 months to put together and update this plan. We had a strategic plan back when I became director. We started off with a strategic plan, and that was about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, and we've since updated it. This is more of just a FYI of where we are, where we see staff going. It's not necessarily for approval. It is for input. But certainly, we do present it to council first and then bring it to the board, get kind of the high level, and then you all are in the weeds. So this is more of an overview for council than an in the weeds discussion at the retreat with you all from that standpoint.
Okay.
And we've made flexibility in there, so it's not a end-all, be-all. If it's not in there, we're not going to do it. But what we've done is we've looked at the trends that we've seen over the last 12 months, and we look at, I'm not going to say what our neighbors are doing, but we really need to understand what the region as a whole is doing as we make our decisions. And we have rationale for everything that we've decided on in that strategic plan. And so far, the strategic plan has worked. Again, we've gone from $44 million to $104 million to $379 million of new investment. So we see a pattern of it working. We just want to expound on that as much as possible. Part of that, some of the strategic plan, and I'm not going into a lot of detail, might be, when we add 2 new positions or 2 individuals to the team, what will those individuals be doing? That type of situation. But we'll lay that out come March.
Okay. I guess my question is, and I'm just thinking out loud a little bit, but how can the board be more supportive of a strategic plan if, in fact, we're kind of on the end of it a little bit? Is there a possibility that you would consider going forward that we maybe be involved in some of the early discussions so we can leverage the assets that are here?
Certainly.
That would be of value to.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Actually,
Sorry.
actually, Mr. Mitchell's suggestion, I think even if it's on a 2-on-2 basis with your board, you might then utilize your volunteer board members to lobby your council members for things that this group thinks are important.
Most definitely. We would love that opportunity.
Just a suggestion.
Certainly.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion, and I'm glad you clarified because I think
Yes.
that's what you were getting at. Because I'm on board with that too. I also feel like we need to be in it up front, or at least review or see before it's introduced to you. Then we can really have a little ammunition to go and jump you guys.
So I'll tell you what we will do. Now that we have that commitment on camera, we would certainly like the opportunity to sit down I don't want to put you on the spot. If you wanted to do an ad hoc committee, I will certainly talk to the city manager and see if we can't move that that presentation, have that discussion, and then certainly have that discussion later.
Yeah, that would be the way to deal with it,
Certainly.
not to involve all of us, you know, that could take time trying to sit down with us individually or
Certainly.
in twos. So, yeah, that would be, so have we, is it an exercise in futility to start this now, or should we be looking for this for the next, how far?
No, I think there's an opportunity. We have not presented it to council. I will certainly talk to Dr. Patton as far as from a scheduling standpoint. Again, she would ultimately be the end-all, be-all. But I think if there was a committee, from my suggestion standpoint, would be Vice Chair Mitchell and someone else.
Yes.
We could certainly have that discussion. We can have that conversation now. What we would have is what we feel is a product, and then certainly the weigh-in of the EDA and how we can best utilize that.
Okay. How about let's get the new folks up and running, so Ms. Drury and the co-chair.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I have a
That's
question, so I just want to make sure. I heard what Councilman Simmons said, so is it inappropriate to bring it to the board as a whole? It has to be on a ad hoc basis?
No, it's coming to us. It's
I
coming,
thought
but
she
we,
was saying.
no, we just want to review, that's what you meant. We need to see it, you know, and then it should be presented to all of us. I'm not saying
that
that
what you're
ad hoc.
saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So the thought process is that we would meet with the two, discuss it, kind of formalize it. Then once the ad hoc and staff feels that we have that product, we would then bring that product to both council and EDA. Now, the schedule of who goes first and what, when, and why, it may be more advantageous to do it at the retreat. I'm just making a suggestion, because we have both boards there at the same time, and that was the thought process. The only added piece would be sitting down with the EDA first. And if that were to be the case, what I would suggest then also is that while we would have 2 members from the EDA here, I would certainly suggest we have 2 members from the PPIC there as well at that meeting. So we will attempt to schedule that through Lee as best as possible. And then I think that would certainly potentially fulfill everyone's request.
Okay. So you're good with that, because I wasn't advocating 2 people make, you know, that decision. So everything should come back through us in one form or fashion. So, okay. Any other comments or concerns?
Yeah, can we get so the committee today is, as of right now, is Vice Chair Mitchell and Ms. Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury. Okay. We need to vote on that.
Okay. We're ready to move on to local incentive program update. Mr. Donahue? Or-
I'll take that one again as well. Normally, again, Mr. Donahue would provide an update on this. I don't think this morning we do not have any new applications. What I will tell you is, again, as we go through the actual strategic plan, as well as preparing for the retreat, want to remind you all of the purpose of the local incentive program. Because we have had some requests recently that do not fall into the criteria or meet the criteria for a local incentive program grant. More specifically, this is for commercial enterprises throughout the city, and you all expanded that. Some of the members on this, well, maybe one member, I think Mr. Smith, you were on the board when we expanded to the citywide. Originally, this program was specifically downtown with a few pockets throughout the city. As part of that, there was an allowance for churches at one point to utilize this grant because of their significance to downtown. However, when the program was expanded, that allowance was removed. So churches, religious assembly are not eligible for the program. That question has come up. And certainly the board can make that change again. But the thought process was, once that was open to citywide, that allowance and that eligibility was removed. But I want to keep everyone abreast of that and aware of that, because we have had a few conversations about them.
I think when Mr. Moore says churches, I think he means non-tax-paying.
Non-tax-paying
entities
entities, yes.
Of all types.
Yes. So that would be nonprofits, things that do not pay taxes. And I bring up churches because specifically that is what has come to us. But any non-tax-paying entity would not be eligible for the grants. Thank you.
No. Any concerns?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go to the next item, State of the City. The State of the City for this year is May 1st. The Chamber has saved the best for last. So we are scheduled for Friday, May 1st, 2020 at noon at the Renaissance. This is a very well-attended event, more specifically because you all are typically in attendance, along with the other two boards. We're telling you about this early so you can mark your calendar. We really would like full participation this year from both boards. Normally, both the EDA and PPIC have separate tables. We also would like to take have your input on businesses that we should have there, invitees, things of that nature. So let us know about that. As the year has gone on, we've had some significant gains and wins, and we certainly want those individuals to be able to share in that excitement with you all at the table. So we look forward to it. Just, I would say, mark your calendars, and Lee will send out a calendar invite to remind you of that date.
Okay.
Next item is joint retreat topics. When it comes to the retreat, I think we already have one topic, which is going to be the strategic plan. But we would like your input on what you all would like to discuss. You don't have to give that to us now, but we would like to have some additional topics. We know what we would like to discuss with you all, and that's going to be a longer day, 8 a.m. to about 3 p.m. So we want to be able to fill that slot. If you don't have it, that's fine. We're not going to make you take 8 to 3. But that's the opportunity for both boards to come together, and we're going to have the same conversation with them about what they would like to discuss and see going forward.
When is that retreat?
That retreat, and I'm glad you brought that question up. So the retreat originally was set for March the 20th, I believe is the Friday in between the EDA and the PPIC meeting. We would like the opportunity to make sure that everyone is here, because there's been some conflicts on the 20th. If we can move it to the day before, which is Thursday the 19th. I'm just double checking to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yes,
Good
Thursday.
for me, but I don't get a vote.
We'll still take that into account.
Said it's good for me, but I don't get a vote.
That's
Okay.
better. Yes, that's good.
So if we could get a consensus this morning, Chair.
Thursday the 19th.
Thursday the 19th. And again, from 8 till about 3. We'll feed you.
Sorry, I missed the month. What month is it?
March.
Does that work for Lee?
Is that at the Renaissance?
We are working on that.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. We've done it at the Renaissance before, and that's not an issue, not a problem. But we would like the opportunity for you all to be immersed in where you are. If we did it at TCC, for example, you are surrounded by your properties, and some of you all have not seen those properties. So we're trying to be creative in some of the things that we have going on for that day. So it may be we haven't determined exactly where just yet. But if we could go around and get a consensus, maybe, that would be good.
Yes.
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 So we will change the date to March the 19th. Lee will send a calendar update, and I didn't want to leave council out, but I think she voiced her opinion first. So March the 19th, 8 a.m. And again, this will replace your EDA meeting for the month of March.
And our topics, should we send them to Lee? Is that how you want that done?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Send those to Lee.
It'll also replace the PPIC
It
meeting?
will also replace the PPIC meeting. That's just for you, Councilwoman. All right.
Okay, very good. Any other concerns or questions about the retreat? Okay, and moving right along, Mr. Moore.
So you all are gonna get tired of me talking at some point. This morning, we have with us Mr. Jim Bento and Mr. Fred Pasquin from Fairlead. If you all have been following City Council, most recently, the Ocean Marine yacht was acquired by Fairlead, and Fairlead has submitted a proposal and rezoning application to rezone the property here on the waterfront from special district to industrial. I think it's heavy industrial. That is to be able to do the work associated with some government contracts that have been received by Fairlead. And I will let Fairlead explain and the representative explain exactly what they're doing. They are here this morning, however, because as part of that entire area, when I say area, I'm talking the Ocean Marine location, there were covenants associated with that, special covenants associated with the use. And those covenants are held by the EDA. So they are here this morning to discuss with you potentially amending those covenants in some way. What we would like to do is allow them to do their presentation, you all to ask questions, and then we will have a further discussion once we go into as part of closed session. So with that, I'll introduce Mr. Jim Bento and Fred Pasquin. And Fred, if I said your name incorrectly, I apologize. Okay.
No. This is not it.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members, City Council, and city staff. Appreciate your time this morning. My name is Jim Bento with Fairlead Integrated, and with me is the president of Fairlead Integrated, Mr. Fred Pasquin. As you know, Robert did a good brief, so I won't go back over that. Last week, we did have a favorable vote from council, 6-1 in favor of the rezoning. And back on December 3rd of 2019, we had a unanimous vote from the Planning Commission to go ahead with the rezoning. So we are here today to discuss a third amendment to the covenants, which is between the property owner and the EDA. Just so you know the history of it, the first amendment, since it's the third amendment, the first amendment, we had neglected to put in a buy and selling and brokering of yachts on the property. And so we did an amendment to the covenants so that the covenants would govern those operations as well. And so that amendment passed. The second amendment is a little more complicated. There was a piece of property that wouldn't pass the certificate of occupancy on the property because the concrete had failed in a certain place. It was called an apron around one of the buildings. And so that property was not given over to Ocean Marine at that time when we moved in. And so what had to be done is when that property was fixed and everything was amended, then we had to go back for a second amendment. So that piece of property would also be governed by the covenants. So today we're here to do a third amendment to that, basically to go into the covenants and keep them as they are for the air quality, the water, everything in there, except for there was a paragraph 4C, and it said that could only work on pleasure boats. So that's why we're here today. We want to just get that 4C removed so that we can work on all types of different vessels. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pasquin, President of Fairlead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good morning. Thanks for allowing us to come. This is my first meeting, and I didn't know where we were going to stand. I thought we might have to get in the middle. I'm happy to see that we're not. So thank you for this. Just a brief history of our company. Fairlead Integrated was formerly Earl Industries. Earl Industries started in 1985 with 3 employees, one of them being Frank Wagner and Jerry Miller, and also Frank Wagner's stepfather at the time, Mr. Earl. And over those years, Jerry Miller retained interest in that company. In 2010, it became a large business with over 1,250 employees in Portsmouth and Newport, Florida. And following that, in 2012, General Dynamics purchased 3 of the 5 divisions of Earl Industries. And Jerry Miller retained 2 of those divisions, Precision Manufacturing and Integration in Portsmouth and Integrated Power and Controls in Chesapeake. So this new company, Miller IMG, was started with these 2 divisions. And in 2014, the company rebranded from Miller IMG to Fairlead. And in 2015, we acquired the company Davis Boat Works in Newport News. And with this Boat Works, we like to tout that we are the second largest shipyard in Newport News, Virginia. We're second largest by about 25,000 employees or so, but we're still number 2. I don't know if there's a third, but we're happy to be number 2. And but most of our operations are here in Portsmouth. And then in 2018, we merged 2 divisions together to make a single entity to work on aerospace products. And then in 2019, we purchased the assets of Ocean Marine and Yacht Center. So it's a 12.5-acre facility that there's a very nice view of it right here. And for our approval to rezone, and what we requested is, we felt there are 8 solid reasons to request that this property be rezoned. The first is construction and preserving and outfitting and storing sections of U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and submarines. It's an ideal fit for this Wavy Street facility. It can add, the facility and the operations can add up to 225 net new jobs in Portsmouth, and the majority of those jobs will be $18 to $30 per hour. We have a proven apprenticeship program that we initiated in Newport News. We intend to replicate that at our Wavy Street facility. Our neighbors across the river, across the Elizabeth River in Norfolk, both BAE and NASSCO Norfolk, are repairing U.S. Navy surface ships. And then our next door neighbors to the south at Norfolk Naval Shipyard are repairing aircraft carriers and submarines. 6th point is Fairlead Integrated is a private company. There's no risk of us being absorbed by a government entity, and that is that we will be a tax-paying business to the city of Portsmouth for the indefinite future. The majority of the industrial work supporting submarine construction has to be performed between 70 degrees and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so that the majority of that work will be performed indoors. It has to be, and it will greatly limit any noise and dust pollution. And we also feel that Earl Industries and Fairlead have a history of being good corporate citizens to the city of Portsmouth. Our owner, our majority owner, Jerry Miller, has that reputation, and we felt the proffers that we proposed on our behalf showed our commitment. And as a result, in December, the Planning Commission gave us a unanimous approval, and last week at City Council in a packed City Hall chamber, it was approved 6-1. We are beginning to make investments at this facility as we speak. We are working with Newport News Shipbuilding to support what's needed there. And you see already we're preparing to make $4.8 million of direct investment to this facility. A lot of it is to support preservation. So you'll see the recycled steel shot blast equipment and dust collectors and paint pumps that would all be done inside the large building. And we're also working for an additional $5.9 million of investment and another $9.5 million on top of that that's not shown in this slide. And this is just a bird's eye view of what we would like to do with the facilities over here. And the boatel that is closest to us sorry, I don't think the laser's not showing up, so I'll use a older pointer. We would like to outfit and do fabrication inside of that building. We would like to do preservation in this building, and then the sonar absorption tile that goes on the exterior of submarines. Newport News Shipbuilding would like to lease this facility and this facility from us to make those tiles. Those tiles would then be placed on the hulls of the submarine in this facility, and then we would move them next door for preservation. So that would be our intent. And these sections, to give a general idea of the size of what we're talking about, they're generally 30 feet by 30 feet to 10 feet tall. They're a much smaller section than maybe what you have seen over here with a 300-foot yacht or 350-foot yacht. So these are sections of aircraft carriers and submarines that are built in modular sections, put on barge, and then barged over to Newport News Shipbuilding or Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut. And then this is just a helicopter view or a drone view of the site, but you'll see here again, here's where in the existing boatel, where we would prefer to do the outfitting and storage. We'll convert this to offices. We'll do blast and paint in this bay, and then Newport News will outfit the sound absorption tile in this bay, manufacture the sound absorption tile in the other facilities. And so why we're asking this morning for this third amendment to the declaration are for the very same 8 reasons that we provided to the Planning Commission and City Council. So those are the remarks that we have prepared for this morning, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions that anyone has.
Thank you. Any members have any questions at this time?
Can you go back to the picture on screen?
Right here, yep.
Yeah, and I think I've been told this, and I apologize, I just don't remember. The big area, where the Fairlead fabrication sign is.
This area?
Yeah, that's
The North Pier.
the North Pier. So what is that slated for, future?
Right now, it's not slated for anything. There could be some discussions later as to where that.
It's owned
that
by
would be.
this body.
But it's owned by this group. Originally, it was set as part of the development from the Harbor Vista, which is
Right.
probably where you remember that from.
Okay.
But that's for another discussion another time.
And gentlemen, what does this have to do with the marina that's right here?
This marine, what does it have to do?
Yeah, what's,
Very, very little.
marina stays
The
operational?
marina is owned
yeah,
by Suntex,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they retain
nothing
that
to do.
property.
Yeah,
Retain that
we
property.
purchased, Suntex Marinas owned this parcel and also the marina. We simply purchased this section from Suntex, yes.
So the marina
Yeah.
will stay
Yeah.
as it is.
And so we've already, all the items from this store have already been transferred over to the store, right here.
Right below us, right below us.
Any other?
I have a quick question. Is the idea to move away from repairing and refurbishing pleasure craft to solely government work, or kind of a mix of the two?
Yeah, it will be the mix of the two. What we know is it had been difficult to solely have a business, so just repairing pleasure craft, and we will continue to do that as ships have those needs. But this will tend to be our focus as far as what we're presenting. Yeah.
And does any of this that you're asking for change any of your painting, air quality, shot blast, any of those rules and regulations?
No, we have to adhere to all that, to all the DEQ regulations that are in place. And what I would add is this recycled steel shot is the cleanest way to do paint removal. It's the lowest dust emissions. You don't, because normal media blasts, you're pulverizing that media against a steel surface. This is steel on steel. You don't have the typical dust, and it's all recycled, and it's all done inside.
In a building?
Yes.
As opposed to what we see across the river and
Yes.
hear from across the river?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and to that, one of our proposed proffers is we understand we are right on the edge of what is a recreational area and the industrial area of what is Norfolk Naval Shipyard now. And because of that, one of the proffers we proposed is we will cease operations, any noise emitting operations, when there's any civic event at the amphitheater. And that was actually one of the questions that was asked by the Planning Commission is, it was said, we're very much for this, but it feels like the Navy, when they need something done, that's going to dominate. And our answer to that was, this can all be planned. This will start out as a single shift operation, and it's not going to be a major challenge to accommodate that proffer. And with proper planning, there is not going to be a risk of us not meeting what we have put in writing in this proffer to say noise emitting activities will cease when there are events happening at the amphitheater.
Jeff?
Yes.
Legal question. These proffers that they're offering, if 10 years down the road, Fairlead sells to ABC Company, they go with the property, is that correct?
They do.
Yeah, I would like to add too, one quick thing is when we were blasting and refurbishing these big yachts, we did blast pretty much whenever we wanted to, and I think there's several people in this room that have been here since Ocean Marine moved in, and no one ever knew because the building, that big building that Mr. Pasquin is referring to has double walls on all sides, and the columns that hold that building up are actually 5 feet deep. That's how big the columns are to hold up that height. And so there's a tremendous buffer of sound, and it's all hard paneled on the inside, which is reflective, and it never makes it to the outside. So I just, Fairlead has been very, very careful to say that they will respect the community and the activities, and they've always been a great corporate citizen. So.
And I'm not, and the reason I asked that question, I'm not worried about you all.
Yeah.
But I do want to think down the road to the next guy.
Yeah. And I'll give you a personal commitment that my family and I are getting ready to close on a historic property in Old Town, the Nash Gill House on Middle Street, and so I know if there's any issue at that facility, there's going to be someone who does not hesitate to give me personal feedback at any time they feel necessary. And so being a member of the community is certainly
That's awesome.
looking forward to it.
Awesome.
And, yeah,
That's
thanks. So
good. That's good.
so I can give a personal personal guarantee.
Just a couple questions in regards to the apprenticeship program. Can you tell me how many people are in it? Were they from the Newport News area? What has been the success rate? And what are the things that you're going to do differently with the apprentice program in Portsmouth based on your learning?
No, we will we'll replicate it. The success factor that we have found is that when we make it a pull system, in other words, when we have motivated employees that want to come into the program, that's what has made it extremely successful. When it's pushed and said, we feel that this would be good for you, this would be good, this would be good, that's when we start to see it's not quite as effective. Okay, so that's been our biggest learning is to advertise, here are the available seats, here's what we are going to fund this year, and that's what we found to be successful. So we have 300 people in our company right now. It's not a big program similar to what Newport News Shipbuilding has experienced. Our numbers so far have been in the teens, and we would see that same thing shift over as we ramp up production here. We would do something similar in Portsmouth.
So when you talk about the 225 net new jobs, are you comfortable that you'll find the skill sets in Portsmouth for that, or will you have to train a lot of those potentially 225 positions?
Yes, it's both. There will be some. It will be threefold, I think, sir. First is there may be some of those available here in Portsmouth. What we know is this area is struggling with two trades right now, with certified welding and certified blasters. That is a problem that the entire port has. So there's going to require some creativity in how that's done, and it could be a combination of apprenticeship or also recruiting people from out of area is the third option.
If I could, Chair.
Yes.
To answer that question a little bit further, we are working with Fairlead. One great thing about our region, more specifically Portsmouth, is that you have companies that, as industries change, some of those same, so for example, I'll give you an example of, we have a company specifically in Portsmouth that builds the cranes and puts together the cranes for the port. So as that opportunity changes for them, some of those same individuals can be trained and certified to do some of those things, and we've already started to make those introductions and have those conversations. You add to that Hampton Roads Workforce Council, conversations with TCC and other groups, Thomas Nelson Community College, we just found out as well. The opportunity to train up that workforce is there. And to answer your question, we want to make sure that we have this in front of our Portsmouth citizens to make sure they have those opportunities.
Yeah, and I will add, there's one other thing we found to be quite effective, but this is long-term effectiveness, is we're involved with a group, Star-Based Victory, that's here in Portsmouth. Its executive director is Bill Hayden, but most people know him as T-Ball. And that's where we find at the junior high level is when we have to help students start seeing that working in skilled trades is a noble profession, and it's necessary, and it's a profession that you can make a good living and live comfortably. And that voice has to be louder at that age, because middle school children start to make decisions that impact their career trajectories in high school. Yeah.
One other comment I'd like to make on education and hiring is when this all came about during the summer, we talked to Fairlead about that, and I'm proud to say that not only am I with Fairlead, but Fairlead absorbed every employee in Ocean Marine that wanted to come aboard, and they did it with comparable pay, which is amazing, and also with extensive benefits. So I think that says a lot about how Fairlead treats people and how they look forward to doing the right thing in the community.
One question too, what is the likelihood of one of those light cruisers or another Navy vessel docking over there?
It is 0% likely, and here's just the physics of the matter. Is the longest pier we have is 305 feet. Actually, can show. It's this pier. This pier is 175. This pier's certified, NAVSEA certified to 305. What's the longest ship you ever docked, Jim? Was what? So a little over that.
A little over that. Mm-hmm.
And it extended out into that channel. The small Navy combatant ships, such as a guided missile destroyer, are nearly 600 feet. There's no physical way to do it, and that's why we say there is a 0% probability. Now, just adjacent to the property, that is a working pier for Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and cruisers and guided missile destroyers have been docked there and will be docked there, I think.
Okay, but there won't be a need for any contracts where that ship backs up to you and
No.
work starts?
No, sir. It would simply be a barge. Barge would come in, we'd offload, or put it on our synchro lift and offload it there, yeah.
Okay. Well, I can say, having worked in Newport News Shipbuilding on subs and the carriers, that a lot of that work is highly environmentally protected, and those huge buildings, and you'll see those huge buildings at Newport News, that's where they work on the subs, and a lot of that's indoors, other than where they move in on a rail sections that they might have to prep to go in the building. So I know there was some concerns about, how much work will be inside versus outside, and I know for a fact, having worked over there, that the majority of that work is done inside the large containment buildings, and they're highly classified, and they're really protected at the shipyard and other places like that. That takes high levels of security clearances to be able to work in there. Will that apply over here too?
Yes, sir. So this NNS tile manufacturing facility, that will be a classified operation, and there will only be certain people with a clearance permitted in that. The remainder, it's not a classified, but it is protected, and it would only be people coming in who would need to work those jobs.
And I only bring that up also because we were talking about types of people to be hired.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to limit the type.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a good point. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Or thank you.
Yes.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion for close. One of y'all want to read that?
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A-3 for the purpose of discussing acquisition of disposition of publicly held real property interest, where discussion in an opening meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding 176 Lincoln Street, 700 Crawford Street, and tax sales properties.
Second.
All right.
Roll call.
Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Ms. Drury? Yes. Mr. Kovacic?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith? Yes. Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
We are in closed session.
I hereby move that each board member certify that, to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Need a second. Mr. Kovacic? All right. Mr. Barber? Ms. Drury? Mr. Kovacic?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
We are in open session. And then we would need the vote.
Okay, Miss, you want a resolution regarding ocean marine restrictive covenants?
Is there specific language?
I believe that was sent out to y'all as part of the packet, the draft resolution, so there's no need to read it into the record. We've simply motion second to adopt and then a vote.
Motion to adopt resolution for Fairlead Ocean Marine Covenants.
Second.
All right. And Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Ms. Drury?
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Are there any other matters to come before us, gentlemen?
No. That's it.
No. Anything else for the good?
I just had a question of the staff. I know that DEDP had done their site characterization on a statewide basis. Were any of the properties in Portsmouth included in that study? And if so, what Do you know what the results of that characterization was?
So they are still going through the characterization from a standpoint that they've completed the majority, and Mr. Donahue, you correct me if I'm wrong, we just had a meeting with HREDA, the Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance, and VEDP is pretty much close to being done with the characterizations. From a Portsmouth standpoint, the study really looked at 100-acre properties.
25 acre and above.
They did 100 acres, they did 50, and they did 25.
Yeah.
And at the time, we did not have anything that met that criteria because BASF at that point was already under contract and being subdivided. We have asked for them to continue to even look at smaller sites because you have cities like Portsmouth, like Norfolk that are in the region that can still contribute, but just not on a large acre standpoint. The two cities, three, that have the largest properties are going to be certainly Suffolk, Chesapeake, and then out in Isle of Wight. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Donahue.
That's correct.
Virginia Beach, I think, recently had some sites that they characterized and categorized. And so that you all know they were looking at, and we gave a presentation to council about a year and a half ago maybe about this site characterization because we've attempted to do something very similar with our properties in economic development and kind of put them on a tiering system and say that this site is ready to go versus one that's not and what needs to be done to get it to be ready to go. But again, looking at 150 or 25 acres, we just didn't have that at the time. You all did not own the Victory Village site, and that didn't at the time was not, while we looked at putting that in, again, that was also in litigation, so we couldn't do anything with that property as well. So, but to answer your question, Portsmouth did not have anything. That study should be done hopefully by the summer, completed with all of the characterizations out. They're still working through a couple things with Timmons Group.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.